Same time, same place, the Wednesday night Awesemo.com golf show. I'm Ben Raza. That's Jason Roslin. You know the drill by now. We're in mid-season form. This should be no surprise to anyone. Rocket Mortgage Classic. What can I say? I really don't have much to say about this. How goes it? What have you found with our new Detroit event?
I've been to Detroit. What? Can you hear me? We good?
Yeah, I think you're good.
Okay.
You froze there a little, but I think you're good.
All right. I told you it was like a little pixely. Anyways, the Rocket Mortgage Classic. I've flown through Detroit, but never been there. I will say there's been some interesting puns put out on Twitter this week. It's been pretty brutal. They've kind of the legions have gone out and made some interesting remarks. Anyways, there's going to be a strike maybe tomorrow. Who knows? The rough isn't going to get cut. The green's not going to get rolled. I don't know. Who knows? That's probably much more hearsay than anything else. But other than a little corruption and scandal, I guess we're set for a birdie fest in Detroit. At least that's what everybody keeps saying. 18 to 24 under. There's legitimately no water hazards or hazards in general on the entire golf course. Too bad Ryan Palmer's not playing because
it's a damn shame,
right? Because we wouldn't have to worry about it. But I was like a new venue, and it was getting really stale in Maryland. No one came. Obviously, the first year here in Detroit, not a lot of stars are going to come, but at least we got DJ on the field, so that should be fun.
Yeah, we got DJ, we got Ricky. U.S. Open champ Gary Woodland, Decky. Obviously, there's a couple names. It's just, as everyone who's looked at the pricing sees, depth is an issue. We're obviously going to dig into all that, but it's the first year. There's a lot of questions, a lot that we're not going to have answers to until it tees off. We just have to try to infer and see what we can do with what we know.
Yeah, I think honestly, this is way too outlandish. They would never do it, but if there was ever a week where they wanted to price the top 4 guys all at 12,000 and the rest, everybody else at, whatever the price is that you can get any 4 guys in any of those 2, this was the week to do it because that's literally how the field shakes out. I mean, you could have, 12,000 for Woodland, the first 4 guys that we just mentioned. Yeah, I thought that would have been pretty interesting because, that's kind of how it looks when you do the lineup. You're like, oh, Neiman used to be priced at 7,500 and now it's JJ Spawn, so we'll get into, I guess, that in a little bit. I thought that would have made it interesting. No site would have, of course, ever done that, but you probably could have gotten away with it this week. So let's get right into some tee times. Last week, I want to just bring up Bryson let me down a little bit. I know T8. If he had T5, I would have top 5'd in the $44. How about you? I saw you up there. Was it the 150 at one point? I don't remember which one, but I again saw you in the top 10. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny, in this is one of these situations where I think process and results over the course of the year you want to be cognizant of. 2 weeks ago at the U.S. Open, I thought my teams were phenomenal, and they did not get there on Sunday. Last week, I thought my teams were garbage, and I ended pretty much in that same spot. I thought I got the most out of them. So, it's one of those. Shout out to Ches. Good for him. Neiman coming up saved me. I had a lot of really good teams, but without the winner, without Keegan and most of them too, and that really prevented anything serious. So it was in a week. Obviously, the big takeaway for me is Benny On is a situation we're going to have to revisit this week, but obviously I was disappointed to see him not play well. And of course, I thought he really should have at Travelers.
Yeah, it does make me nervous because if we look and we'll certainly talk about him a little bit more and we'll dive into the strokes gain numbers that we see, but everything kind of looks a little bit down for him. So maybe a spot to use his leverage and fade this week as much as we do like him. Anyways, okay, so yeah, we'll get into that. I think a big takeaway for me was Adam Hadwin again just could not get it done at this course when he should be in form. He cost, he was 25% owned, I think, in the 150. So it's just interesting that, course history should at least be looked at with certain people, or course fit. I shouldn't say history, maybe more so course fit, because, I'll tell you, Hadwin came in good form, so he was a big miss. But again, a really fun tournament. Keegan made it really fun on Sunday. I remember saying I wasn't that intrigued, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I'm glad I started watching. Obviously, he tailed off at the end. Zack Suture is the one other thing I'll say is had some really good starts on the web.com tour. And that's, I guess, what a little bit more research, will do for you. Field alternates, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight, just because we have a little bit more time to fill than we normally do, just because the field's so weak. But obviously, the narrative street cashed out in a big time. He was 6,200. Did you find yourself playing any of him? I mean, he was like 1% owned, so it's not like he was a total,
Who,
no
Zack
name.
Suture?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know who that was.
Yeah.
That guy's just made up. It's funny. Someone actually mentioned him to me, and we were talking about him before the tournament. But no, and it's true. You can glean. Obviously, there's a lot of guys where you can find a narrative to play, but that is someone that's had some results on the Web.com tour, gotten a groove, and I thought he held it together. Obviously, on the turn on Saturday, it was an implosion by him, but he settled in. He easily could have finished 28th, and it would be a nice story. But to hang on and grab obviously serious money and serious points is good, and that's what I think. This week is another week. Obviously, DJ heavy favorite, but if one of these big names doesn't win, it's wide open for someone unknown to really make a run.
Yeah, and just since we're talking about him, just to show up Zack Suture, he needs 77 points to retain his full card. For everyone that didn't listen to the Barstool podcast, and I did listen to that 20 minutes of him, just because I'm compelled by the story. I think it's so fascinating. He took that medical leave that you and I kind of joke about, that people just want a year off and they're not going to retain their card. This guy was not the case. Like, he was nowhere close. He was legitimately injured and came back. It's a great story. He took it at the right time, was able to get those web starts. So to sew him up, he needs 77 points, which is a top 10 or a solo 10th or somewhere around there, if he wants to do it in the 2 starts that he's got left. And it's only 2 starts that he has for this major medical. He's sewed up plenty of other things with that card last week. But to sew up full status next year, he needs about 2 top 25s, so or a top 10. So plenty still to play for Zach, and we'll get into that as well. So first thing we always do is check in on the weather, which is nice. It's going to be warm. It's going to be toasty with no wind. That is absolutely prime for scoring. The DraftKings points are going to light up this week.
Streaks, bonuses. You think you've won, and then people get under 70 bonuses, and then you've lost. It's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely. But it is nice. You know what? Obviously, can one wave have an advantage? Of course. We talk about that all the time. It doesn't mean I'm not going to stack maybe a couple teams, but there's no chance I'm reworking my player pool this week based on weather, because I don't see any reason to.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So we will start off. We talk about this a lot, that these first groups going out, these first couple of groups going out, have the opportunity to post that number and obviously, have the opportunity. Anybody does, but more times than not, I would say more than 50% of the time, the morning wave gets the first round leader. Again, that's just statistics of saying 57 to 43. It's not like an overwhelming number. But first group's out. Sam Saunders is interesting because he's had a couple of really good rounds. He's the first of the 6 guys that I want to mention. Our guy Lahiri, he's no chance. I'm not even doing any of that. But Sam Saunders may be interesting for a bet. How about DFS for you? Are you interested at all? And we are going to do a little showdown run. Maybe that's where you want to use him?
I'd be more apt, to use him in a showdown format, because the problem with him isn't a streak of, 9, 12 holes. It's 72 holes. You see him up there and you say, oh, wow, Santa. And then you look and he finishes 70th if he makes the cut. So that's a guy that, can he get off to a hot start? Sure. He's not playing great. There's a couple guys like that. Luke List goes out really early. Obviously, he's not been playing great. Another guy, though, that I think could get off, if you're looking for like a first-round leader, that type, maybe to a hot start, I do worry about him over the course of a tournament, though.
Yep. I think I'm pretty much there with you. I do. I will agree. I will say I do like him for showdown. I think it's a good start for him. He can get hot. We've seen it a couple of times before. So he's the first one out that I would look at. The Thursday AM featured groups, if you do have a PGA Tour Live and you're into that stuff. Oh, man. I'm this week, it seems like I've read your stuff. It seems like we're in total agreement with Matsuyama. But the other 2 guys, man, Billy Horschel and Bubba Watson, I really got to sit my Thursday morning and watch those guys. I'll be going out to breakfast or doing something else, even though Fowler and Kisner are playing in that second group. Anything you want to say about those 3 guys? Are you doing something else tomorrow morning as well, or are you going to sit through it?
Yeah, I mean, I do love to get up and watch golf. That doesn't if I oversleep, I won't lose extra sleep because of it. It's not a great group. There's it's a long tournament. Guys are going to go low so you can make up ground. I think Decky, for me, is one of my favorite plays. If I'm not getting DJ, he's playing so consistent. He's affordable relative to some of these other guys. And there's not much to really not like with the way he's played this year.
Totally agree with you. The afternoon tee times featured groups, again, Dustin Johnson's in that. So I'll be watching golf in the afternoon tomorrow, which will be enjoyable. Honestly, I don't care where Dustin's playing. I may not terribly like his persona, but I love watching Dustin play golf. His swing is just so fun. So anyways, couple more just names in the morning. Joaquin Neiman, who you and we talk about all the time, followed his journey. Everything looked pretty decent last week. Putting looked really good, gaining about a stroke average per round. And then you already mentioned Luke List. And then one other name that's getting buzz, Hank Lebioda. Those guys going out in the morning. Any interest in stacking the L's? It's List, Langley, and Lebioda going out. Say that one 3 times fast. How about playing List and Lebioda? I mean, they're both playing tee to green, are both pretty good.
Yeah, I have some of them. You know, Lebioda, he feels sub 7K as a pop. I mean, I totally get it. Chad has been asking, our Slack has been asking, because if you play DJ, you need someone down there, and there's not a lot of options. He's one of them. Mm-hmm. Luke List is a little different in the sense you have reasonable plays. You know, he's in the high sevens with guys like Hoffman, Stanley, Benyon. So there's a little more opportunity cost, but you're getting him at a ridiculous ownership because he's just been playing bad. So that's a risk reward you may want to weigh. I do have some in the player pool, but he's certainly not a priority.
Yeah, and certainly when you see 7,300 yards with no water and presumably really not a lot of trouble on the golf course, that should set up perfectly for List with the par fives all being reachable, being able to use that length. So certainly interested there. All right, we'll move on to our next section where we talk about kind of the chalk. And this week it's relatively easy that almost everyone above 9K, except for 2 guys, which one of them is you're kind of the whisperer on, and the other one is Kevin Kisner. Everyone's going to be above 13% owned, with DJ and Decky just roaring way ahead, as they should. 25 to 30% owned for DJ Decky. Does that even worry you? Like, I'm honestly, with this field, I'm overweight.
No, yeah, it doesn't worry me. Ownership we could do a whole show just on that.
Yeah, for sure.
You want to be cognizant of it. It's important because you need to know what you want to do to accomplish your goals. But I'm not going to be like, oh, I love these guys. Oh, they're popular. I'm not going to play them. That doesn't. What do I care if other people play them? That's, it just makes me need to allocate more if I want to get the leverage that I want. And in this field, I'm with you. I just am not going elsewhere. Obviously, Ricky is a guy. He's, to me, the most interesting by far because I don't know where his ownership will fall per se. It's hard to get 2 of them. I don't think many people will do that. But, man, I'm mostly going to get DJ and Decky up top because I think they just set up the best.
So a couple things I want to talk about with just these 3 guys, and it's a lineup strategy for a couple of minutes. But I think that Ricky, in your 100-man or your 200-man or your 500-man contests, I know like the $400 this week is like 700-man. Even smaller ones, like I know that the bigger one, the 2100, is like maybe 100 people. I think in a contest like that, you could see Ricky below 10% because most people are going to jam either Decky and DJ or both. And that's going to lead me into my next kind of segment I want to talk to you about. If DJ Decky do come 1-2 or come 1 and top 5, we need 4 guys priced at or below 7,000 to come in the top, say 15 or 20. I think it's very plausible in this field. And I don't know if you happen to catch my article. I'm playing a decent amount of DJ and Decky in the same lineup. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm looking forward to the rest of the show because I want to hear how I have a couple lineups like that. But for me, I guess your boy Chip McDaniel's making an appearance. That's all I'll say because it is dicey when you do that.
Yep.
I wanted to do that because I really do like the spots. But it's tricky. You're certainly basically,
you need a player pool of like you're almost playing like everybody at that point. Not everybody, but you have to play that everybody. You can come up with one narrative. That's honestly what I'm going for. Now, is it if they go 1-2 or 1 top 5? I need 4 guys, obviously, like I said, to get in the top 20, top 25, and in the right combination. Can we find out of out of, say, 15 guys, can we find 4 that do that? And that's what we're going to try and do tonight on the show a little bit, because I just think that this tournament, for the first time all year, you could throw in Ricky. I think I'll have some Ricky Decky as well. It's way too hard to do Ricky DJ. It's just way too hard. But
that's extreme.
I think this could be the first time all year that we see a true stars and scrub actually have a chance to win it. We've seen so many balanced approaches win it. This field, DJ could win by 5 and Decky could come second. And just like what we saw in Mexico with DJ and Rory.
I mean, obviously, that's what you're building to. You need them to carry, and then you hope that they're so optimal that all you're asking these guys at the back end are just making the cut.
Yep.
It's tricky. You know, it's a situation. It's not just about them. It's about the other guys, too. Yep. You're omitting the 8K range if you do that. So guys like Wise, guys like Hovland, if they have a huge week, even if they, you know, depending on the build, it still may not work. So that's a risk reward you want to weigh. And that's obviously what I've tried to do is how can I maximize my chances with someone like DJ, with someone like Decky? Because a lot of people, you're 100% right, just to touch upon what you said about Ricky. And like 100-man, DJ might be 50% and Decky might be 30%. Yeah. There's not a lot of room for Woodland and Ricky. So those are, if you can stomach it, definitely interesting starting points.
Yeah, and it's not like, you know, Ricky and Woodland. Of course, Woodland's coming off that career-defining win, and Ricky, of course, had the first-round lead, or at least real close to it. It's not like they're out of form. It's just, first off, you get $1,000 price difference going from Fowler to Decky. So right then and there, Decky's in just as good a form, so obviously. But DJ obviously is clearly, when you put him in a tournament like this, you want DJ on your lineup almost every single time. Now, Fowler has played a scoring event, the Waste Management, and won earlier in the year. So I'm certainly going to have plenty. I have him in a bigger dollar lineup for the exact reason that you and I just discussed. I think he ends up, that 16% that he's going to be in the $5, I think turns into like 12 or 10 in the 400 and higher. Maybe a little bit higher in the 150, but just for contest-specific purposes of what people are trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish. In the $5, that's where I think, you really need that lottery ticket. That's why I think you might be able to find, I'm not going to lie, if Doc Redman comes in the top 20, a lineup like that probably has a chance, right? And the last time Doc Redman was in the field, he came in the top 20. So I think you're going to need a situation like that. Now let's talk about the 8K range for a second. Striemann and Sabatini are going to be chalk, and then everyone else is going to be around 10%. Where did you find yourself going? I heard you mention Hovland. Obviously, he's kind of the hot new buzz. Aaron Wise, I saw you write him up as well. Those two, your favorites at this point?
I think so. Wise is a guy that I don't want to say struggled with this year because I jumped on, and he's had a really good form, really impressive in the majors. I don't know what to really make of that, to be honest, but he's played his best golf on the biggest stage, and that's masked, I think, a pretty poor year from him. I do think this is a good setup. He can lean on his driver. He had good approaches last week. The price is fair. And then Hovland, I was a little skeptical last week. I kind of laid off. Tee to green, he was fantastic. He just couldn't really putt. He wasn't great around the green. So it's enough to kind of get me not back on, because I don't know if I ever was, but those are the type of guys I'm going to. The one I want to throw to you, and obviously I want to hear your thoughts. Can you stomach going to Bubba? Because I looked at him pretty closely, but he's playing so poorly.
I can't get there because he's the type of guy that can just totally ruin you when he doesn't care. Yeah. He's just he fits in that group. I'm not going to say he's going to withdraw, but if he gets out of a tournament and doesn't like a course or doesn't like a setup, he's going to make it known, and he'll be home before, your lineup is even had a chance to make any type of move. So with that being said, no, I'm not doing him in anything serious. We play, you and I play a lot of lineups. I don't know how many I'm doing this week, between FanDuel and DraftKings. Yeah, of course I'm going to have a couple. I'll introduce a one-off segment at the end where we got to pick for a one lineup. He would not be in that segment for me. He's not going to be in my one lineup. And he's probably going to be underweight. It looks like he's going to be 10%. I'm probably going to come in like 7 or 8. Nothing. Honestly, I just can't stomach it. I can't do it.
I'm similar. Just on talent, Bubba at that price in this field, I think you can warrant it blindly. But what you said is well taken, that if he doesn't like the course, he's also just not playing great. I mean, Travelers, he loves the course, and he was not good at all. So tread lightly, but I got sucked in a little bit. Not my favorite in the 8K range, though.
So he's known for off the tee, right? Obviously, but he's so streaky with it, and that's what I'm worried about. Is that when he starts to not care? So we go back to the PGA, gain 2 strokes off the tee, right? That's exactly what we want to see from Bubba. The next week at the RBC, where I think he came in like a T68.18, nothing off the tee. Next week, where he cared, U.S. Open, gained 2 strokes. Following week, last week, when he got out of contention, half a stroke. So it's pretty clear that when Bubba gets out of contention, there's just not a whole heck of a lot going on, and then he's at this point in the career where, it's probably just about those top FedEx Cup points and wins. So it doesn't, I guess, really matter too much. So that's what concerns me. But if he has everything on, then yeah, here's the thing. He hasn't gained more than a half stroke putting since the Valspar.
Yeah, these are all.
I just can't do it. Yeah, I think that's, you know what I mean? I just, yeah, I would rather go to Kevin Streelman, who I'm actually interested to hear your thoughts. He's going to be 15 to 17%. Loved him last week when driving distance really didn't matter much. I think it's going to matter much more this week.
I do too. Streelman's really interesting. Him and Rory Sabatini, obviously they're playing great. And I have no problem with Streelman. I've been playing him. I'll say this, though. To me, I try to identify a couple guys a week like this. He's a perfect guy that I think you can go to in cash and kind of go underweight in tournaments, and he doesn't burn you if he comes in 20th, 24th, something like that, where in cash you're like, all right, nice. But in tournaments, it's not certainly not a necessary piece. And maybe you're a little ahead of the game if you pivot to someone a little more aggressive. So I get the spot. I'm not full fading because he's playing well, but he's someone I don't think kills you too many times if you go against the grain.
Yeah, and he's playing with Vaughn Taylor, and so I know he's not in the same price range. Vaughn Taylor's 7,600, but just want to get your thoughts since they are paired together. They have kind of similar games. Vaughn Taylor birdied the last 4 holes on Sunday to get himself into, what was that? That would be a T4, right? Or T4 or T5. I don't remember. I'll go look. Hold on. I'm sorry. Anyways, it was a good finish. One of his best finishes. I will say that after every top 10 that he's had recently in the last couple of years, the next start has not been good. You going to buy that narrative with me and fade him? He is going to be kind of chalky.
Is he really?
10% is, and I say kind of chalky where like you can go to a Martin Laird that's right in that same area or JJ Spawn and get half the ownership probably.
Yeah, for me, there's just other guys where you're looking – I'd pay up a little more. You've got Kyle Stanley, you've got Jimmy Walker. Even Nick Watney for me is safer. And then I'm still going to Charlie Hoffman is a guy who really – he's gaining with the irons consistently. The putter has let him down. He's missed 2 straight cuts after finding his form. I'm more apt to say, you know what, I'm going to a guy like that. I'll embrace some risk, especially, ownership for all these guys. They're going to garner some, but nobody, I think, blows up and is really chalky.
Yeah, Charlie Hoffman hasn't lost strokes on the approach since the Players. He's been super consistent. I think that spans about 7 starts, something like that. So super consistent. He lost 4 strokes in the 2 rounds, over 4 strokes in the 2 rounds at putting at TPC last week, TPC River Highlands. That's terrible. You can't expect that to happen again. Maybe it does, but I wouldn't bet on it. Memorial, he didn't look good putting either, so it totally makes sense. I'll pivot to Matthew Wolff because 7,500, he made the first cut, missed the secondary cut last week. Putting in around the green looked kind of good, about a third of a stroke on each of those. Lost on the approaches and off the tee. However, he had I think I counted, he hit about 4 drivers a day. We know that's the best club in his bag, and I think he's going to be able to take it out on about 13 holes this week. He's definitely back in play for me. I really don't think we have a Norman Jong scenario. If I guess my theory is in their 2 years together at Oklahoma State, Wolff beat Hovland more times than Hovland beat Wolff. I guess, why do you think more people are apt to play Hovland at $900 more than they are Wolff? Is it just simply because, and granted, I'm not trying to take away from these results, it's because of the Masters in the U.S. Open?
I think there's no doubt.
Okay.
It's a narrative-based thing, and It's a tricky situation. I mean, I like anyone will fall prey. If everyone on Twitter tomorrow tweeted that there's some guy in this tournament who's new, he's the young guy. I mean, like Norman Zhang,
Yeah.
you start to say, oh wow, maybe I can jump on. And you see him on the biggest stage at these majors, and obviously Hovland. I'm not taking anything away either. He's been awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
Matthew Wolff, we really haven't seen much. We saw him at Waste Management, and
Played great for 3 rounds.
Yeah, and he faded.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see. Obviously, these guys have only played a couple of tournaments, so I'm more interested in Wolff than I have been. I think this is a pretty good course for what I know about him. Not going overboard, but I don't think you need to. So I agree, actually. I'm interested to see what he does. Obviously, these guys will settle in. It's a long, long journey for all of them.
It sure is. And again, this is the live before a lock show, so we don't talk about betting too much. That's obviously on the Friday show. But since we're not able to talk about top 20 and top 10 odds, I'm going to bet Wolff. I mean, the top 10 odds are 20-1, and the top 10 odds are 20-1, and the top 20 odds are 10-1. So they're just flipped, just flip the numbers. So for me, if I get 10 tournaments, obviously I'm not paying any juice with the way I'm betting, who I'm betting through. I've got 9 tournaments to break even on the top 20 and 19 tournaments on the top 10. I think he does it this week. But if not, you got a couple of more. So if you don't want to play him at 7,500, which I think is actually a pretty good price, it's reasonable in this type of field. I don't think it's too cheap. I don't think it's too expensive. It's just another way to get action on him.
Yeah, absolutely. You can always look to the betting markets with some of these guys. And I will say, chat, friend of the show, Zach, just brought this up, and I'm glad he did. Peter Malnati, who I was on last week, and he played great. He just couldn't find his putter, which is his best club in the bag. I have no problem going to him and Spawn, who are totally different type of players. They are both, they're not driver heavy. They're very technical. I think that's just fine at a course like this. Maybe not the same type of team as some of the Bombers, but I have no problem with either of them at that same price point.
Yeah, let's talk about Malnati for a second. Approach game has been great game the last four events that he's played in. Off the tee, though, and again, it doesn't mean you have to understand that the strokes gained, and I'm talking to you, I'm saying in general, people, if they don't know strokes gained numbers, you have to understand that when you're looking at it, how it's actually determined. And strokes gained off the tee is determined by a blend, but favors distance over accuracy. That's just the way that the numbers accumulate. So a guy like Malnati and JJ Spawn, who don't hit the ball that far, based on their average, they're both in the 110, 115 range in driving distance. They don't really have the opportunity to gain too much. So a course like last week, where it was more about accuracy because it was positional, you couldn't take out driver, Malnati had a pretty good week, gained a half stroke. Weeks like before, like at the Memorial, where it was more about distance, where he also had a very good week, he lost 3/4 of a stroke. So I think that's maybe the only thing that would concern me a little bit about Malnati is he going to be able to reach the par fives where or is he able to just make it up on the par 4 scoring, right? Because that's where we know he makes his bread and butter. So I'm definitely, I don't think he's a bad play. And JJ Spawn, I like a lot this week. I just think that when he gets in a groove, he's got some top tier talent. So if you had to pick one of those two, where would you go?
It would be Spawn for me. Spawn is the guy that I'm a firm believer that if he hadn't gotten hurt multiple times, he would just be in a different price range and people would have a different kind of view of how good he really is. I think he's a damn good player. And I think we're going to see that going forward. I'm not saying it's this week in particular, but he seemed healthy. That was his best ball striking in Shriners, which has been a while. There's not much for me to not like. It is Spawn, so of course, a little scary, but at 7,400, you got to make some decisions, and that was a pretty easy one for me.
Totally agree. You look at the, last 3 starts, he's gained over a stroke ball striking in 2 of the 3 and was positive in the other one. So definitely don't see anything wrong with JJ Spawn this week at 7,400 in this field. Like you said, he's probably a little bit underpriced for where he should be. So a couple of other guys in this range. We already talked about Zack Suture. Are you jumping on? Are you playing him?
I'm not. No Zack Suture for me. I was very impressed. To me, that was so out of nowhere that, I talk about this sometimes when a guy breaks through and wins. to me, not that he won, but that's a breakthrough for him. He won a life-changing amount of money. He's still got a lot to play for, so I wouldn't be stunned to see him make the weekend, but I'm more apt to just, if I was going to go somewhere in that range, honestly, and this is, remember this, when this doesn't work, I want you to tell me next week how dumb what I'm about to say is. I'm playing a little Brendan Steele, who has been bad for literally, it seems like eons. He's starting to come back. I have a little Brendan Steele, and that's where those shares mostly went.
All right, so it was a really long stretch of golf from the Honda Classic all the way to, through the Memorial. So that was like literally 2 starts ago for him, where the most strokes he gained tee to green was 0.34 at the Wells Fargo. So obviously, it wasn't good. However, all of a sudden last week, he gained 1.14. The approaches looked decent again, gained 0.33, gained off the tee, gained around the green. So it looks like it's honestly getting closer. He's playing a weaker field this week. He should be able to use his driving distance. He favors distance over accuracy. So 7,200, I think I'm interested again. I'm gonna go back to the Sam Burns. Well,
yeah,
are they kind of similar games? Tell me that to me they seem kind of similar.
I mean, Sam Burns is a psycho. That's all I know about him. He gets his scorecards, even if he's 10 clear of the cut. You think, oh, he's only got 3 holes left. Let me go get lunch. You should probably wait because that guy gets dangerously insane.
How about Saturday? Were you sweating the MDF like I was?
Oh, yeah. The guy's out of control. He's out of control. Now, that's great because he scores like a banshee, and this is a prime tournament where you can come in 45th and you come 20th in DraftKings points because birdies are going to be flying off the shelves. I think he's good. As chat pointed out, obviously I'm playing some for Telly, but I've cooled the Jets on him. It was just awful last week. I think this is a fine course, but I'm not allocating my normal ridiculous leverage with him. I can't hear you. It's for Telly. That's what he does. Just really ruins everything. But when you really look at the low sevens, it's pretty brutal. And when Jason comes back and abruptly interrupts what I'm about to say, Cameron Tringale is the guy that I'm really looking to in that range.
About that. Apologize. Dylan Fratelli just literally puts the heck on it. Interesting. Okay, just Burns, the least amount of strokes that he's lost over his last 4 starts, and he is around the green at the Charles Schwab. He lost 4/10. He's just looked really consistent a lot lately, and he's X's withdrawal, which was really a miscut, right? Let's be honest about it. It was a miscut at the Wells Fargo. Other than that, he's put together a really nice stretch of golf, making cuts. So 7,100, Sam Burns, I'm in a scoring event. I think this is a good time maybe for him to break out. All right, so like I said, if I'm stacking DJ Matsuyama, it's 69.5 for the last 4 guys. So we're starting hot and heavy. I'll start with a guy at 7 that has looked good, tee to green recently. Approaches maybe tailed off a little bit last week. Alex Prug, or Prug is how it really is. Any interest at 7K, if you are stacking, say, Decky and one other guy in the 9, say Neiman and one other guy, you're probably going to need at least one guy in this range. Will he make the player pool?
He is an interesting name that I'm glad you brought up. I totally see that. The guy at 7K that I more went to was Cameron Tringale, who's someone, he was not on my radar at all.
Yep.
Started to play better. And, he's still, is he the best golfer out there? Of course not. But he's really ball striking better. He gained a ton up in Canada. Last week he faded, the MDF, but he couldn't putt. So that's someone, what we're talking about, and Jason, you already highlighted this. If you play DJ and Decky together, you know what you need. You need them to come basically up top, and then these guys are holding on for dear life. So Prue, Tringale, Troy Merritt, I think, is in the conversation. Guys like that are going to probably be your third man in, as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, if doing the build that I'm talking about, absolutely. Hank Lebioda, as we already talked about, another name at 6,900. Again, coming fast and furious, but these are guys. Now here's what I'm looking for. I went in and I said, okay, I want to find out the maximum that these guys have gained tee to green ball striking in the year and find out and see if any of them are close to form. Trey Mollinax was a guy that has gained over 2 strokes tee to green in a tournament this year. Obviously wasn't as good putting, but he bombs the ball. It was not too long ago where his approaches were absolute fire at the Wells Fargo and the RBC Heritage. So I guess I'm banking on that for him at 6,900. He missed the cut in the number last week. I'm interested.
So am I. This is going to end predictably bad, but Trey Mollinax is a guy that when I think about what type of course, not that we know a ton about this, but I think this should set up well. He can be aggressive. He can score. We've seen him go low time and time again. Form, obviously you want him to be playing well, but he is the type of guy, if you look at a macro results of him, he has some big finishes off pretty spotty form. So sub 7K, I did look at him. Obviously JT Poston is a guy I get into trouble with. He's also 6,900. He's behind Mollinax for me. And then Sepp Straka, who is a ball striking machine and possibly the worst putter I've ever seen. So you've got some options, but I think Mollinax is a sharp call for sure.
Sepp Straka has only gotten better. Last 3 weeks, ball striking 0.9, 1.2, 2.37. So obviously only 2 rounds last week. Missed the cut. On the number, might I mention. I actually like Sepp Straka a lot this week. I'm going to have a lot of them, obviously, doing those builds that we just mentioned. I was smiling before because there's this next guy. I'm going to read you his last 6 starts. Strokes gained off the tee. 1.65, 1.39, 1.5, 0.93, 1.2, 1.63. Guess who I'm talking about?
Cam Chip.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty much a giveaway, right?
That's where before when you said it favors distance over accuracy on the strokes game off the tee, you can look at example A, Cam Cham.
He is, you look him in the dictionary and you're going to see this guy's face. However, let's talk about something else, though, and this is just really hysterical for me. He has only gained one other place in the last 5 tournaments, and that's approaches at the Charles Schwab. Every other stat, he's lost strokes. At the PGA, he gained putting. Other than that, off the tee has been the only place since the Wells Fargo. It's absolutely insane. However, I'm interested because I think that distance wins out this week. I think it's time for him to make a cut again, and I think that he could get hot if he gets to the weekend. So I'm interested, 6,800. Not a ton, but I think there's that $75 tournament. I think I got him in on one of those lineups. Another guy at 6,800, Taylor Gooch, just added to the pool. Definitely interested in him. RBC Canada, we saw those approaches return to fire that we saw earlier in the season. So normally the other stuff follows, at least looking at his stats. So how about Taylor Gooch for you?
Taylor Gooch is a guy that when you can do something, I talk about this often, especially with punts. If you can do one thing to that level, I think you're always in play, especially if it's your irons. When he gets going, he's one of the best ball strikers on tour. It's insane how good he can get with the irons. The rest of the game is not great, but when you're that good at one type of thing, you're in the conversation. So that's a guy I think you can sprinkle. Obviously, it's still a narrow window because if he doesn't gain a boatload with the approach, you're practically dead. It's similar to Cam Champ. If he, has just a 0 off the tee, pack up shop.
Yeah. He'll be done 14 holes into his round. No doubt about it. Another guy that you definitely have played a couple of times, and maybe a little bit more on FanDuel just because of his price to the minimum. Ryan Blum, who I believe had a first-round lead or was part of the first-round lead recently or was definitely in the top 5 at one point in the tournament over the last couple of weeks. Tee to green last week at the Travelers looked pretty good. What are you doing with Blum?
Yeah, Blum is he's the original Peter Malnati. He's another guy. He's not going to bomb it, not going to do anything crazy, but plays some solid golf.
Yeah.
No problem with him. Again, 6,800, we're really scrapping for guys that we think could find the weekend. Streb is another one I looked at. But man, it's a tough sell for anyone down here. I'm jumping around a little. Sam Ryder.
Yeah, that was the next one on my list.
Another guy that obviously has made some cuts. The results, can he sustain it for 72 holes? So far, the answer has been no. But he's shown some flashes, and that's a guy that it's scary because you can end up with a lot of him. He makes for a fantastic pairing with a guy like DJ, and that's going to be pretty common.
Yeah, last week he must have so 13 was the par 5 where so many guys were like chipping it back into the water. And he must have done that because he lost on average 1.6 strokes around the green in his four. Yeah, so I can't imagine that's going to happen again this week. That is an astronomical number. So other than that, it looked decent. Putting looks good. Approaches look decent. So yeah, Sam Ryder definitely interested in 6,600 for sure. Cody Gribble has put 3 decent starts in a row together. He's a guy that lefty that's got a really nice swing, is a good putter, can get streaky with it. 6,700 again. A lot of these guys I'm just going to have to play doing the build that I did. So what I'm hoping for is that I get, like I said, 4 of them in the top 20, and that DJ and Matsuyama run away with it, right? And if that actually happens, then it pays off.
No doubt.
So guy that made the cut last week, and I think I had mentioned this exact thing to you last week, that he just needs to make a weekend. He's been really close. And it's Cam Davis, a guy that's got all the talent in the world, 6,500 this week, min price on FanDuel. So we'll definitely have some on FanDuel. Honestly, the stats looked okay. They didn't look good. But I think he just needed to get that finish. When we go back to the Dominican, I think that was probably one of his best finishes of the year. I've got a little Cam Davis at 6,500.
Well, I got some Cam Davis. This is a guy. Talk about going back to what I was saying, where it's like, Twitter, stuff like that. How I even found this guy in the first place is beyond me. But I've been sporadically playing him. He's very talented Australian, aggressive off the tee. I don't want to say that he's turned a corner because I think that's a little much, but he has made 2 out of 3 cuts. He's going to do most of the damage with the driver. It's can he make his irons a little better? That's not really doing much for him. I think it's pretty good spot for him at 6,500, though. I'm certainly over the field on that guy. And like you said, finding the weekend, getting 72 holes in, can he start to string together cuts? Obviously, that's the next step for a guy with plenty of talent.
2 more guys that I'm going to bring up. We've done good here, actually.
Yeah,
believe it or not, we're doing really good. I do want to get into the showdown. We're going to spend a couple minutes on that, and then I have 3 questions from before. So 2 more guys though before we go. Doc Redman, I already brought up. Are you going to play any? I have 64 Monday qualified. 18th at the Wells Fargo at a way better field. We've seen this guy before. You going to have any?
If I have to dip that low, he may make a couple teams. Nothing outside of large field tournaments. My goal is to not go super low. I think we mentioned some guys in the high 6s that I can stomach. This is where, the Curtis Luck line of demarcation is really where I try to not go. Another Australian that I get into trouble with. Doc Redman is interesting, though. Obviously, another high pedigree type player.
Mm-hmm. Done well. I think he's on the McKenzie Tour, if I'm not mistaken, and had some couple of good starts. Last guy finally gets a sponsor's exemption after 4 Monday qualifies. Yeah, I'm going to bring up my boy Chipper McDaniel. His dad did an interview live during his thing, and it was just great. It was very wholesome. The guy had just driven out there. Like, it was just another good story. Guy has no status, but he does now. I think he's already qualified, if I'm not mistaken, for the Web.com Tour Finals. Through the starts he's picked up. I'm buying the story. 6,300. He doesn't do anything super well. He relied on his putting last week, which is worrisome. But at 6,300, I don't have him anywhere serious. I just think it's a pretty good value.
There's not much down here, so it's hard to really say anybody else. Because, I looked – because I did have some builds, not that I was trying to do this, where I needed, someone really cheap. And – if you go any lower, I think you kind of have to almost back out because there's just not much. So this is a guy at least working hard, starting to see the results. Could do worse. Stuart Sink is down. Yeah, Svensson. I don't know. I'm not looking to get down here much, if at all.
All right. So we'll go to our Slack question, and then I've got a couple from before. So these are a yes, no. So it sounds like just one word. On these guys, I'll skip over the ones we've covered. Brunson Burgoon.
Brunson
This is for
Burgoon.
GPP, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for GPP. All right. I mean, I'm always a Burgoon guy. His 10 strokes gained putting in like one round
Right.
wasn't able to sustain. I can't get on him when his irons are this bad, so that's a pass for me.
Yeah, I think he falls in. I think he's on a major medical too. So I'm always interested in narrative plays. I'll have a little. Scott Stallings.
I looked at Scott Stallings. It's a guy we've seen get into kind of a form golfer to me, though. And again, just not really doing much. Another one that didn't make it for me.
JB Holmes.
So JB Holmes is interesting. We see him come out of nowhere. Obviously, I want to say it was Genesis, but he grabbed a win earlier this year. We know he can be a crazy aggressive. It's going to just be, can he stay out of these trees? Can he stay out of the rough? Don't hate that as a flyer, though. I get why you'd go to someone like that.
Yeah, it's 7,300 for a guy who's won a tournament and has the pedigree he does. I think it makes sense. Chesson Hadley.
Chesson Hadley. It's just been that outlier at the U.S. Open, which was awesome to see. I think we both sharply said last week, cool your jets. Wasn't good at Travelers again. I'm going to let other people kind of play him, and I'll go elsewhere.
I would much rather play Suture, Burns, and Fratelli.
Totally agree.
Brandon Steele, it sounds like we're both in. Burns, we're both in. Troy Merritt, I didn't get there that much. I'd rather go to JT Poston, who's the next guy. And how about you?
Same. I'd rather go to Tringale. I'd rather go to Poston. I'd rather go to Mollinax as well.
Who's the next guy on the list? We're both in on Cam Champ. Did I convince you to play a little bit, or are you totally out still?
I'll play a little bit. Just a little.
Can we get this on record, everybody?
It's so gross. It's just that guy. He gained 9 strokes putting at Sanderson for his career. I doubt. If you do cumulative strokes gained putting, it's over 9 at this point. Just ridiculous.
That's actually a great point. I gotta go look that up. He probably doesn't. It probably doesn't even come close. Okay, so I have a cash game question. That I get, and this is a good one. And I actually had a very similar thing when I was building out my cash lineup that I looked at. Rory Sabatini and Martin Laird, who we didn't talk about Martin Laird, but I'm in on. He's been just really consistent. He hasn't lost strokes anywhere over his last 3 starts. Just been consistent. Not great, but take a look at Laird if you hadn't already. But Laird and Sabatini or Billy Horschel and Hank Lebioda? Cash game.
Cash game. I would go to the first two. It's close.
Sabatini, Laird.
Yeah, Sabatini. Sabatini and Laird, and it's just because the different. I mean, this is what you kind of have to weigh. The difference between Billy Ho and Sabatini for me is less than the gap when you're talking about Lebioda upwards to Martin Laird. Lebioda is a distant 4th. I don't mind him in a tournament setting, but that's just a risky. I think dipping into the 6s for cash is a little much. So I tried to go more balanced when I could.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Hank is his tee to green numbers look great. So I think that's why people will probably be a little more apt to play him in cash. I'm with you. I'd rather do Sabatini Laird. I think you're getting much more consistency from those guys. So that's the one that I'd lean to. All right, we got any from chat before we give some hot takes, which I failed last week, so I need a rebound. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgot about Andrew Landry. I totally missed that. I apologize, Spin. Sorry about that. He actually looked, for a couple of rounds, looked really good tee to green last week.
He did.
So I'm interested because of that.
No, yeah, he's another guy, kind of like Streb, who I looked at. It's been bad for a while. Landry's the guy, he broke through and then naturally, fell on some rough times. But 6,800, a guy that I think you could make a case for. I think he finds the weekend. We did have one from Dylan in chat, Wyndham Clark.
Yes. Okay. I was hoping somebody was going to bring him up without me having to bring him up because I always feel like it's me. So I'm glad. Okay. Here's the problem is that when he gets hot, he gains the strokes where Jordan Spieth gains the strokes, which nobody likes to see, right? I understand that. It makes sense. Last week, again, over 2 strokes at on his short game, 1 and a 6 around the green and another half with the putter. He he drives it way further than Spieth. He probably hits his 3-iron as far as Jordan hits his driver. So he's got that in the bag. If the short game stays hot, yeah, he could creep up into the top 20 this week. But the short game's got to stay hot. He will gain strokes off the tee this week likely because there's no trouble. I bring it back to the Honda, which is similar type of yardage. There's so much trouble at Honda, and he competed there. So if the short game stays hot and he puts the ball close to the fairway on these par fives, he's in my player pool, and I think he's got a chance to pop this week. Yeah,
he's an interesting guy. Anyone that struggles with the irons in particular, or it's always weird because it's just such an atypical way to be effective. Yeah. He's one of those guys. He's a good driver of the ball, and he can get crazy hot putting. He can get somehow hot scrambling, which is just weird. We saw that last week, just bizarro world. So I'm kind of indifferent to the play. I think in certain teams, I can look to a guy like that, but if I'll tell you this much, if he doesn't fix it with the irons, look at Beau Hossler, who was doing the same thing, and Beau Hossler's losing like 3 strokes a round on the approach right now, per round. It's massive.
Oh, jeez. Oh, see, that
could be an issue.
Yeah, it definitely could be with Clark, and here's the thing with Clark is that if you go look at his numbers. The worst stat that he's had all year has been the approach. He's lost over 2 strokes at the Wells Fargo. So that means he can get real cold. Doesn't get really cold with any other club. RBC Canada, but again, 7,000-yard course, can't hit driver everywhere. You're going to be able to hit driver everywhere this week. So I'm interested in Wyndham Clark. That was a good one. Any others?
Last 2, and then we'll go hot takes. Scott Brown and Harris English. Neither for me. I prefer what Spin was mentioning in Landry and a couple of the other guys we talked to. But they're in that sub 7K range where you're going to need people like that. Scott Brown is not bad.
Relied on the putter last week. He lost strokes in all 3 of the other parts. That's just a red flag to me. I'm okay with, I played Jordan Spieth for 3 years. So I'm okay with people losing strokes in other places if they're putting really well. However, you got to gain it somewhere else, and Brown did not do that last week. So that's out of form for me. Let me go check Harris English really quick. Is he priced a little bit higher?
Harris English he's right in that range.
He's same thing. However, gained a half a stroke off the tee. Terrible with his irons. Now I'd rather go down to 6,500 Cam Davis, to be completely frank. I think that. Yeah, that's where I'd rather go.
Yeah, fair enough. Like I said, my last thoughts on that before we give the hot takes. You're going to need guys in the 7K range, but try to keep it reasonable. Don't take 20 of them. A couple are going to, break through and play pretty well. Some will make the cut. A bunch are going to get cut, though. Try to fit in with an angle or something that you see. Because you could look to any of these guys and you can pull on one string. And I'm guilty of that, obviously, where I say, oh, well, this guy, he's scrambling great. Let me do it. You want to make sure you're trying to minimize the red flags, which there will be with some of these guys.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So hot take. I failed on mine last week.
I hit mine. South America. Don't sleep on South America. That's what I do.
Did you bet that?
I did have an even top 5, and that was the only redeeming thing I did betting.
That must have been pretty good. Like 40?
Pretty good, yeah. He was 18 to 1, I want to say. It was not bad. It was money coming in, which is at this point what we're looking to do. So let's see what we can muster up this week.
I don't think you're ready for my hot take.
Does this have to do with Chip McDaniel? Because if it's with him, I don't think I am ready. You're right.
No. Good. It's a Maria Fozzi wins the LPGA tournament.
I don't know who that is.
Yep, 100 to 1. Tail me on it.
Who?
Yep. Just
Maria Fozzi.
Yep, it's her home course from college, and she's one of the best college players out there. So I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, 100 to 1, 20 to 1, 10 to 1. But now my hot take for the PGA tournament. Yeah. Take a look at Fozzi. I'll color up with people in the industry had mentioned it. I looked into it. I'm like, oh, okay, this seems interesting. So, and I'm okay with a little LPGA sweat to watch them on Sunday.
There's nothing wrong with that.
If they want to attract more fans, it's exactly what they need to do. They need to create their own DraftKings or something. Anyways, beside the point, my hot take for here is DJ Matsuyama 1-2, no specific order, with Matt Wolff getting his first top 20.
Whew, that is a hot take. I like it. Since you gave an off-brand hot take, I'm going to give two. Molly in the African Cup of Nations, 25-1 in the futures market. Go get that. They smoked Mauritania in the first game. The boys are looking good. If you follow African soccer, which I'm sure everyone watching does.
Really good. I like that a lot. Okay,
but
that too. Yep.
In terms of a hot take here, I'm going to go back and I'm going to say that JJ Spawn grabs the top 5. I think this is a really good spot for him. The irons were magnificent last week. He's a form guy, and if he is healthy, this is an 8K plus golfer in this type of field. So that's a guy, there's some risk, but I think a lot of reward if we get the good version of him.
Love it. I love it. He's a big play for me, so that's definitely confirmation bias. So, all right, I think we'll get out of here. We've got a good patch. John Deere. Some people absolutely love it. Some people absolutely hate it. That's on tap for next week. Then we got the Open Championship. I'll call it by its right name. That is the fastest week by far of any week. Obviously, it starts. We could actually do a live before lock show. Legitimately, it starts at I think 2 a.m. That's going to be a crazy week. We'll have some crazy content coming out. There's so many qualifiers for that we should probably start today to put them out there. But a fun 2 weeks at least. If you like the John Deere, great. If you don't, the British Open is going to be so much fun this year. Got anything else for me?
No, I think that covers it up. We got another major coming on fast. It's good times. We're getting through these events. Obviously, as always, chat, you're phenomenal. We love it. Hit the like button. It's good stuff. If you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Slack. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. Hope you all come back. Good luck.
Cheers, everybody.